Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call the Frontenac County Council meeting to order Wednesday, February the 15th, 2023. Do we have quorum, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Warden Vanderwall, we have quorum.
Very good. There's no closed session and no amendments, so we will go to adoption of the minutes. Pardon? Oh, yes. Sorry. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Adoption of the minutes moved by Deputy Warden Smith, seconded by Fred Fowler. That the meeting minutes held January 18th, 2023 be adopted. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Then the special meeting held minutes of the special meeting held January 26, 2023, moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Gowdy. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. At the minutes of the committee, the whole meeting held February 8th and 9th, 2023. Okay, well, I guess be resolved that the minutes of the committee, the whole meeting be adopted. Asked for a mover, Fred Fowler, and seconded by Jerry Lichty. Councillor Lichty, sorry. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Then at this time, it's my pleasure and honor that we are going to do some presentations to some of our staff. And it is a pleasure and honor today to recognize the professionalism, efficiency, compassion, and quick thinking of Fairmount staff members Samantha Hazel, Colleen Noble, Crystal Hawley, who I know has sent her regrets. I don't know if everybody else is here or not. So Lori Brzee, Tammy Bush, Katie Milligan, and Chloe Aird-Tuzna, and Olivia Carey. Last month, this dedicated group of Fairmount staff responded to a medical emergency involving a bystander that unfolded near Fairmount Home. This group demonstrated exceptional teamwork, coordination, and skill in providing first aid, secured the scene until paramedics arrived, and assisting paramedics until they departed to the hospital with the patient. They did all this while still maintaining the outstanding standard of care we know they provide to Fairmount residents every day. On behalf of Frontenac County Council and staff leadership, I'd like to extend my most sincere thanks and appreciation. And we do have Susan to come up, and we're going to do some presentation. And at this time, we're going to move into Committee of the Whole, moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Saunders. That the council adjourn and meet as Committee of the Whole Council with the Deputy Warden and the Chair. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to start with our briefings from Mr. Kelly Pender.
There we go. Thank you, Deputy Warden. It's my pleasure to present the February administrative report. As usual, I'll highlight a couple of things on each of the slides, but feel free to interrupt or ask questions. And if we don't immediately have the answer, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. A couple of things I'd like to highlight, in particular, the biweekly joint administrative facility meeting that we held yesterday. And we do those every 2 weeks. We're making great progress. We anticipate that the administrative committee, we will do either a virtual or a live tour of the building in the next couple of weeks. All of the major demolition has been done. The electrical work has been completed in the lower level, and one side of drywall has been put up and just awaiting city inspection on the electrical, and they'll finish that. So making great progress, and I know it's been a little bit slower than everybody would like, but I think over the next couple of weeks we'll see some great progress, and we're still looking at a December move-in date. So the Roma conference I think was largely a good success. With a number of meetings, both the Warden's Caucus and with Frontenac, and managed to advance a number of local priorities, including housing, Ontario health teams, paramedic services, and long-term care.
Kelly, those dates of February 16th to the 18th?
For January 16th.
Okay, thanks.
So the Warden's Caucus, we have a CAO's planning meeting tomorrow and Friday in Belleville. The primary focus will be on the 7 and 7 housing plan. We will be looking at how that's going to roll out with the business case and the consultant. And we anticipate that the business case will be completed in time for AMO in August and presented to Minister Clark in August. We're quite excited about the work ahead, but it will be a lot of work. We have 2 projects in Frontenac that have been put forward as potential pilot projects, which doesn't mean anything at this point other than they are on the list of things to look at. That's the Verona housing project and Charlotte Lake project. And both would require considerable consultation with Central Frontenac Council and South Frontenac Council, of course, but it's an opportunity to get significant money towards those projects. The paramedics study, we're still anticipating that that'll be presented to the board of directors in March, which we'll get it to this council shortly thereafter, as soon as it's released by the caucus. And the chief and I will present a more detailed report when we receive it. What we're looking at is, originally the EOWC paramedic report was looking at growth in paramedics response by about 4%. We know it's been closer to 5 throughout the pandemic. And as we talked during our budget meetings last week, as we come out of the pandemic, it'll be interesting to follow that. The primary issue, though, hasn't been increasing call volume, although that has increased, it's time on task. And this will give us a good sense of where we stand across Ontario, both in terms of call volume and time on task, and give us some baseline projections that we can begin to look at budgeting for in 2024 and beyond. And just a reminder, the ORH study, which is our original resourcing study, is due to be refreshed in 2024. And we continue to work with the City of Kingston on options for paramedic stations. The building permit for the paramedic station has been applied for, and we hope that further work will take place on the paramedic station on the campus at 2069 Battersea Road will commence as soon as we can get in there and the frost is out of the ground. So making lots of good progress. And I think while we're adding resources, just about every single paramedic service in Eastern Ontario is doing the same, which is good news, not just for Frontenac, but good news for all of Ontario, because it is a seamless system. And when we add resources, it helps our neighbors in Lanark and Leeds and Grenville and Lennox and Addington and Renfrew County. And when they add resources, it helps us. It keeps paramedics closer to their home base. So it's a systems approach, and we'll have a better idea in a couple of weeks as how all that looks. AMO Communications, I won't review that in great detail other than to say that there are a number of initiatives that AMO continues to monitor. And the RED program, the Rural Economic Development Program, I know South Frontenac is looking at an application. Richard Allen is looking at an application as well. So we hope to benefit from that program. Over the years, just a reminder that the RED program was one of the major funding vehicles for the KMP Trail. And it also helped us significantly with our branding and communications efforts. So it is a very valuable program, and we encourage all municipalities to look at areas that can benefit the region. Registration is open for the OSM conference. Always a good event for small urban municipalities. And if you are a member at your local municipality or would like to go as a county representative, registration is now open for springtime in Paris. And no, not that Paris, it's Paris, Ontario. So it is, there is a difference, yes, yes.
No, I was going to say,
Okay.
if it's the real Paris or.
So just all the abatement has been completed, as I said, so that is good. And the finalized quotes for the basement demolition have now been done, and the construction framing is complete. The north addition, the foundation has been poured. We were looking at it yesterday. The block work is going to commence as soon as we get a nice stretch of weather in a few weeks, so that will look significantly different. And I think that's one of the things that council and the public will appreciate, is just a more efficient entrance and waiting area at the front of the building. And big thank you to Madam Clerk. We've reworked some of the council chamber stuff, her second office, as we like to refer to it. And what we were originally looking at is the replacement Bud Clayton room, which is a committee room off of the council chambers. The architect and the contractor presented a slightly different arrangement yesterday, which will make that room significantly larger and more useful for committee space, day-to-day staff meetings, closed sessions of council. So it's a far more appropriate space for council and for the board of directors at the Conservation Authority.
We have a question, Judy.
Just on the abatement, do you mean that the asbestos abatement is all done now? And if so, do you have a figure of how much more that cost?
Good question for the treasurer. All the abatement that's going to be done is done, and it's paid for from reserves. So I think we have a final figure, Mr. Treasurer.
That's correct, we do, and that was provided in a report earlier to council. I don't have it in front of me. I think it was near $250,000, $250,000.
So just a reminder for all of council that we had the option to either remove the asbestos. It is safe. It has been protected over the years. Asbestos, when it becomes airborne, if you drill into it or make changes, is when it's problematic. So we could either remove it or put an equivalent amount in reserve to remove it at a future date. And it certainly makes more sense to do it when we're doing a full renovation, which was council's decision. The strategic planning exercise that council will be taking part of over the next little while. The consultant has been reviewing all of the background data. They did a call with Jeanette and the senior leadership team and came up with a list of documents they wanted to review. The public engagement will conclude by the end of February, but I think we're actually going to bleed into March now. Yeah, just with some vacation commitments on behalf of the consultant. But the public consultation is going to include focus groups, one-on-one meetings, a public open house, a general online survey, and a youth consultation online survey as per their submission. Fairmount Home update. The management team and QP 2290, human resources, finance staff implemented further changes to trial staff schedules for PSWs and RPNs. And a big thank you to the Fairmount staff and the union representatives working together. Have come up with a schedule that is far more amenable to staff and hopefully lead to less overtime at the end of the day and a more efficient deployment. And it's a pleasure working with our friends at QP to come up with staffing plans that meet our requirements into the 4 hours of care, but provide a better quality of life for the PSWs and RPNs. Vaccination, KFLNA provided COVID-19 vaccinations for residents on February the 16th, and we're currently at 95% of residents up to date with their COVID booster vaccinations. We continue to be actively recruiting for PSWs, RPNs, RNs, cooks, just about anything at Fairmount, and certainly at our last Warden's Caucus meeting and in our meetings with the Minister of Health. The health human resource crisis is affecting everybody, and we all have a lot of work to do to get to a point where we can completely staff our facilities. Human resources update. Director McCullough and her staff have been fairly busy as usual, including 54 recruitments through February 7th, including service desk analysts, part-time superintendents, paramedic superintendents, our 3 summer students, plus 1 posting for 30 part-time paramedics. And our labor relations, we're still at the table with all 3, but we've invited both QP unions back to the table and have dates for QP 109. And the chief and Director McCullough have 2 arbitrations booked in February, although I think 1 was just settled, so we're down to 1. And we continue to implement the HRIS system that we received the modernization grant for, along with Leeds in Grenville. And major software implementation is never easy, but this will make reporting to the province and to council much easier and give people live access to their data and automate a number of processes. So I know in particular the staff at Fairmount have been actively involved in the process and the go live, as well as obviously our finance staff and our HR staff. So a big thank you to them. Just an update on our paramedics. Community paramedics enrolled 1,700 clients in the program. So there are 4 full-time community paramedics working in Frontenac and the city of Kingston, and along with a superintendent that is responsible for the operation. Just a reminder, this is 100% funded by the province of Ontario. It's a $4.6 million commitment over 3.5 years. The province has announced that the program is going to continue. And the idea obviously is to treat patients in their own homes, avoid trips to their family doctor, or avoid trips to the emergency rooms. I think the doctors throughout the county and the city have been very good at referring individuals to that program. Just a reminder, it is referred through the doctor. They can't go directly to the paramedic. The doctor has to refer them and meet the criteria. So if you have somebody in your community you think could benefit from community paramedicine, their doctor or a clinic or ER can refer them to the program. We're preparing for good old St. Patrick's Day and green beer, and obviously spring recruitment for paramedics.
Judy has a question, and then Ron.
Okay. This community paramedic program, would it be suitable for perhaps light duty paramedics, not those that are going through work hardening and things like that? It doesn't sound like they'll be expected to be moving stretchers and doing CPR and things of that nature. So I'm just thinking for staffing it, it's not a different skill set at all for a paramedic in that. And I'm just thinking from a return to work perspective, it might be suitable. And the other question was back when you were talking about the 30 part-time and that, and no mention of full-time positions, and that I believe our ratio is sort of almost a 50-50 at this point in time, which isn't an ideal scenario in that for cost and retention of people. So I just wondered at that.
So I'll begin. There is specialized training for community paramedicine, and there is the expectation that they are first responders at the same time, but I defer to the chief for more details. With respect to our full-time, part-time, we'll be dealing with the full-time issue and as part of our budget discussion today. But most paramedic services, and you'll have that data through the Warden's Caucus report, we're fairly typical in terms of full-time, part-time. We do have full-time float positions that fill in, but part-timers are primarily responsible for filling in vacation, sick time.
I know.
And that is the most economical and efficient model, unless you're the city of Toronto or the city of Ottawa that just go with full-time options.
Ron?
The paramedicine participation, I would assume that somebody like Southern Frontenac Community Services are already aware of that, seeing you say you need a referral.
Yeah, I'll defer to the chief, but the referral comes from your family doctor, not from somebody like, so Southern Frontenac Services could tell their patients, their program participants, clients, correct.
So a small point of correction there, you can get referrals to community paramedicine through a lot of avenues. It doesn't just have to be a family doctor. So we are closely connected with community services, and they're involved as well. Going back to Councillor Greenwood-Spears' question, we have our 4 permanent full-time community paramedics. We have also used that program as a work hardening as we're bringing people back on modified work, because it often meets some of their requirements. Trying to staff it solely with modified workers isn't sustainable, as we never have a guarantee of how many we may have at any given time. At times we have no modified workers, so we wouldn't be able to run the program that way. I can't remember if there was another outstanding question. Oh, the full-time hiring. Yes. So, council sets the number of full-time positions that we have. We need the part-time to backfill vacation, as Kelly mentioned, about vacation, sick time, training, etc. There are a couple of paramedic services, Toronto and Ottawa, being examples where they host a fully full-time model. So they all of their employees are full-time, and then they count on minimum and maximums, which has been incredibly challenging for them throughout the pandemic, because when people are off sick, there's nobody to fill. So they're dropping below their minimums on a regular basis. We've sort of investigated that in the past, and as Kelly identified, found that this is the most economical way to staff at this point.
Other questions for Kelly at this point? Okay.
and working with Dr. Brooks on the Neighbors Saving Neighbors AED program. Planning Department, so I think Monday was the last meeting with our councils with respect to the community planning permit system, and Joe and Sonia and Dimitri and Jenny have been busy putting that program together. And it's going to be one of those tools that councils can use to reduce not only the time but more efficient implementation of local planning policy. It's widely used now across Ontario and will result in savings in both time for staff and for the applicant.
Ron?
Is this somewhat up to each individual municipality how quick they implement it? And the other part of it is our council has kind of been pushing that we should just do it on everything. But we want to see how fast we can implement it first to see how efficient it works. And if it works really great, we just want to do it on all of our properties instead of just waterfront. Because it's that tool that replaces site plan and all these other things, right?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Joe, but I think the pace and the timing is your municipality's choice.
Yeah, through you. So yes, Warden. As we mentioned in our presentation to the township councils, our recommendation at the outset for this work is to start on your waterfront. See if you're pleased with it. So I gave the example of the township of Lake of Bays and Muskoka, and they found it to work really well for the community. And now they're looking at covering the entire municipality. But we're recommending that we would create one bylaw for all 4 municipalities, should you choose to invest in this. And then we would tailor that to each municipality, and the decision on when to pass that bylaw and the official plan amendment would be up to each individual township.
Do you have generally how quick this could happen if we're really efficient?
Well, I'll have to wait and see what each township council, how they deliberate this on the budget and determine, hopefully all 4 will agree to it. We'll prepare the RFP, hire a consultant by the middle of this year, and we'll wait to hear from them and how long it will take. But as I mentioned at Frontenac Islands the other night, there are 3 or 4 consulting firms in Ontario that have expertise in doing this work. So it won't take a long time, but we want to make sure we have lots of public consultation. That's the key. Thank you.
So we're probably talking this year.
Through you, Warden. For implementation, I'm thinking early 2024. To be cautious, that would be, again, I emphasize this is a change in how we've done planning approvals. There's a lot of benefits to it, both on lake protection and in terms of helping residents go through the process faster, determining on what each township wants to delegate to staff. But the public need to understand what that means.
Well, on that note, could you do a presentation then on how well it worked for this other community to do the whole thing? Because I'd hate to go through this all this year to get half of it put in. And if the whole system works really well, why wouldn't we look at maybe doing the study of saying, this is what happens if you're just doing the lakefront. This is what happens if we're going to do the whole thing. I don't know. It's just a suggestion.
Sorry, maybe I'm being too conservative in the approach, but I think the best way to do it is start on the waterfront lands, see how it works. And then if you want to go beyond that, so the deliverable will be a bylaw for waterfront lands only. It won't be for the entire municipalities. If for example, South Frontenac wants to expand it, then you would be doing that on your own, unless we all agree to do that. And that's really not where we're going at the start of this.
Gary?
Thank you. I have a minder there. So why wouldn't we do it all? I mean, I'm looking at it and saying we're going to invest X amount of dollars to write the bylaw. It can't be that much more to go from this to this. And yes, we may implement it based on waterfront and then do this, but I'm thinking we should be all in.
Through you, Warden. So generally the complication for doing all of it, and some of you have been through new zoning bylaw exercises recently, then you're into looking at it on a property by property basis for your entire geography. I mean, we could potentially ask the consultant to provide a second cost on that. But it would be a longer process, in my opinion, to do that rather than focus on the waterfront. And the public may not all agree to the entire geography being covered.
Ron?
So on that note, then, if we pass a bylaw and everybody agrees that we start with the waterfront, is it easy to amend that bylaw down the road then that says, and now it includes all properties? Is that simpler?
Through you or to you, Warden. So I've looked at the draft community planning permit system bylaw that Lake of Bays Township has put together for the entire one. And my observation was, just like a zoning bylaw where you've got the big pieces, you've got the general provisions and the definitions and all that heavy stuff, that detailed stuff. They didn't have to do much work on that. They just had to decide, okay, how do we want to put the permit system zoning on the rest of the lands, go through that in detail, have that public consultation. There will be additional zones created, for lack of better words, but I would say, once you've done the bones of this community planning permit system bylaw, it won't be a big leap to go to the next level.
Okay, let's let Kelly finish here.
So on today's agenda, we'll be looking at the amendments, the official plan amendments that Sonia and Joe and staff have been working on. So those will be on today, implementing the provincial direction with respect to Bill 109 and Bill 13. And I don't think anybody at this point thinks that the province is done with changes to the act. So stay tuned, and we're continuing to work with our colleagues across the province. In particular, the province has eliminated conservation authorities from discussions or commenting on natural heritage items, but have not eliminated the responsibility for municipalities to look at that. So the new provincial policy statements, we'll see how that all works, but we're also meeting on March the 1st with the townships, the CAOs and the treasurers and the planning staff to look at, how we're going to deal with natural heritage comments, because it is a significant change. And perhaps the largest part of that is the institutional knowledge that our conservation authorities brought to the subject. They're the ones that have led the studies and conducted the work on the ground. And so it's going to be a significant change for municipalities. It doesn't negate our responsibility to comment on it. It just means that we have to do it in-house as opposed to contracting it out to the Conservation Authority. Planning applications continue to be strong. That usual build up to spring and the number of inquiries is quite strong, and we all know that inquiries don't necessarily generate planning applications, but usually for every 2 inquiries you end up with 1 planning application. So it is a good leading indicator of planning activity, and we anticipate a strong year, although maybe not as strong as last year. And finally, some upcoming events. Your planning and economic team continues to work on the open farms event, and we partner with the city of Kingston on that as well. So it's a good regional event. The business survey is now open. If you know a business, please make sure that they've got a link through our ambassador program. Scott, Debbie, and Matt have reached out to just about every business we know of to get them to comment, and it's been a big part of our social media over the last few weeks as well. So it's really important information for council to have as you plan programs, to know what businesses are thinking and what programs and services would benefit them. So look forward to the results being presented to council. So with that, Deputy Warden, unless there's further questions, I'll.
Okay. Any further questions on Kelly's report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to unfinished business. There is none. And we need a mover and a seconder for the consent reports. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Nikki. That council consent to the approval of reports A through E that are considered routine items. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. So that's all of those planning reports. Committee of Management of Fairmont Home. I need a mover and a seconder for this motion. Moved by Ray, seconded by Bill. That Committee of the Whole Council adjourn and meet as Committee of Management of Fairmont Home with the Deputy Warden in the chair to receive information reports from the Chief Administrative Officer, Clause D. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and we need another mover and a seconder. Fred and Nikki, that the Committee of Management of Fairmont Home adjourn and revert back to Committee of the Whole Council. This is new to us from other years, right? Because we are the management board. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Mover and a seconder for reports from the Chief Administrative Officer. Moved by Judy, seconded by Jerry. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer designation of County of Frontenac representative for the Frontenac Howe Island Ferry Report, and further that the clerk be directed to introduce a bylaw later in the meeting to designate Mr. Robert W. Dillabaugh and Kelly J. Pender as the operator's representative for the Frontenac Howe Island Ferry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And corporate services, mover and seconder. Moved by Ray, seconded by Nikki. Whereas approximately 35,000 people across Canada experience out-of-hospital cardiac arrest annually, and whereas Frontenac County paramedics responded to 276 cardiac arrest cases in Frontenac County and Kingston in 2020, and whereas fewer than 12% of patients who experience out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survive, but that patients who are treated by properly trained bystanders who are equipped with automatic external defibrillators, AEDs, in the crucial minutes before paramedics arrive may be as much as 3 times as likely to recover as those who don't. And whereas Dr. Stephen Brooks, Associate Professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine, School of Medicine, Queen's University, is leading a funded research study and pilot program to recruit volunteer responders across Frontenac County to be trained in CPR and the use of automatic external defibrillators equipped with AEDs and coordinated with paramedics and the Kingston Central Ambulance Communications Center to respond to possible cardiac arrest emergencies in Frontenac in the crucial moments before paramedics arrive. And whereas partners in Dr. Brooks' initiative include Frontenac Paramedics, Kingston Health Science Center, Kingston Central Ambulance Communications Center, Queen's University, Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, with research funding provided to Dr. Brooks through the Ministry of Health Innovation Fund, Ontario. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive this report in non-pecuniary public support of Dr. Brooks' Neighbors Saving Neighbors Volunteer Responder Pilot Program for Cardiac Arrest. And further, that this report be forwarded to the townships for their information and support. And further, that Dr. Brooks be commended for his commitment to ensuring the best chance of survival for residents of Frontenac County who may experience out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and for this contributions to scientific understanding of the best practices for resuscitation. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, we have. Just did that one, sorry.
Could you read that again? for me?
No. I was also thinking how this has changed in that Jeanette used to read them all, and I kind of liked county council being done that way, but it's gotten pushed back. Onward. Do you, Jeanette?
So under the new procedural bylaw, if you recall, council made an amendment that you no longer actually need to read the full motion. You just need to call for a mover and a seconder.
Now, that should have been told to me about at least 40 minutes ago. All right, so we don't have to read the motions. All right, okay, I need a mover and a seconder for this one. Fred and Ray. Draft budget revision. All those in favor? Carried. No discussion. All right, carried. Mover and a seconder, corporate services. Mover and a seconder, Nikki and Judy. Resolve that, this is council to accept the corporate services tax report. Question, Ron?
Well, it's not a question. I guess I would like to say though, I think for the public though, you should at least ask for a mover or a seconder for the corporate services 2023 draft budget revision though, or else they don't really even know what we're talking.
Yeah,
And the next one is the tax ratio. So at least they know where to refer to if they're want to.
okay. So this is corporate services 2023 tax rate. Okay, any questions on the tax rate motion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, next we need a mover and a seconder. Nikki and Jerry. This is on corporate services 2023 tax ratios and tax rebate reductions. Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Carried. Any questions or comments on the report section? Seeing none. Reports, there's no reports from the advisory committees of county council, and we will return to council. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Ray. Sorry, Judy, I didn't see it again. That the council revert to committee of the whole council. To council. All those in favor? Carried. Changes.
Okay. I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the report of the committee of the whole. Moved by Deputy Warden Francis Smith, seconded by Councillor Bill Saunders. Any comments? All in favor? Carried. There are no notices of motion which have been given. Giving notices of motion, sorry. Are there anyone that would like to serve notice of motion? Seeing none. Hungry. Communications. Don't know if there's any questions or any comments on any of the communications. Seeing none, then we will move to other business, which are bylaws. General bylaws and confirmatory bylaws for first and second reading. Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Bylaws A through E. Be read first and second time. All in favor? Carried. Then I need a mover for those same bylaws to be read the third time. Councillor Leonard and Deputy Warden Smith for third reading. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so that's it. Are you sure? Okay. Do we have a mover to adjourn? Counselor Saunders. All in favor? Carry. Wow, thank you. Oh. Thank you very much.